Greetings gamers, my name is Anto and today we're going to be unboxing and doing some first impressions of the Heroes of the Borderlands starter set, the new 5th edition starter set from D&D. This video is sponsored by Calypso's Catch, an aquatic adventure for 5e, more on that later. So in today's video we're going to be diving into the new starter set and I'm going to be taking a look at this from the point of view of someone who has never played D&D before and who's getting into the system for the first time, potentially getting into TTRPGs for the first time, and how does this box set onboard a brand new player to TTRPGs. This box set was sent to me by Wizards of the Coast. I did get it for free, but I would have paid for it. But otherwise, they're not paying for the video, they're not seeing the video before it goes out, and if I find anything I don't like, I'm gonna tell you. So to begin with, let's start off by having a look at the box itself. So on the cover here, we have gorgeous, really bright and vibrant art, which is a theme throughout this box set. Spoiler alert, I have already filmed this video once before and the footage was all unusable, so we're redoing it. But unlike the Lost Mines of Phandelver box, which I felt to be quite a dark and muted box, this is nice and bright and vibrant and stands out a lot more on the shelf, I think. In terms of the contents, it tells you that you're going to get a quick start guide, a play guide, 3 adventure booklets, 9 double-sided poster maps, 5 handouts, a combat tracker, 8 class boards, 210 cards for characters, items, monsters, NPCs and spells, 273 tokens for monsters, terrains and resources, and 11 game dice. And if we jump onto the back here, we get the back blurb, which shows some of the contents of the box and tells you a little bit about what's included. Now, right off the bat, when I first cracked this open and when I heard about it, I was hesitant about the adventure setup here. It is a very open sandbox style adventure. You have the wilderness, the keep on the Borderlands, and the caves of chaos, and there isn't really a defined story that takes you from point A to B through one linear narrative on this. Now that does harken back to the original Keep on the Borderlands adventure, which this is inspired by, but I do think that it is atypical of how modern D&D games are run and how I think it is best to introduce people to a system that they've never played before. I think this is an ideal setup for someone who is already familiar with 2014 5th edition and wants to transition to 2024 in terms of the open sandbox feel of it. You'd be very familiar with core concepts, you'd be able to run through it really easily, but then the approach of the game materials in here would probably be too basic for you. But not having that linear story, I think, is going to be a detriment for brand new game masters running this set, because while there is some guidance in here, it's all very wishy-washy and all very, you could do this. And I think there are going to be some game masters out there who need more rigid guidance than what this box gives them. With all that out of the way though, let's dive into the box and check out what's inside. If you're watching this video, you probably appreciate pre-written adventure modules with gorgeous maps, which means you're going to love today's sponsor, Calypso's Catch. Calypso's Catch is a system-neutral, nautical-themed TTRPG adventure designed to be used with any system or in any fantasy game. The adventure can be run as a continuous campaign, all broken up into 20 separate encounters, each of which comes with a gorgeous hand-illustrated map, mechanics for 5th edition and Pathfinder 2nd edition, and a soundtrack of music. If you run the adventure as one continuous story, you'll be sailing, swimming, and swinging through dangerous encounters to help Calypso restore her powers and memory, all the while battling 3 distinct factions which have their own motivations in the adventure. If you watched Pirates of the Caribbean as a kid and it became like your whole personality, this is the perfect adventure for you. You can pick up some free sample maps down in the description below, and if you like what you see, head over to the campaign page down there as well. There's almost a week left of the campaign and it's already fully funded and has started unlocking stretch goals, so check it out, and thanks again to Demille's Wondrous Works for supporting the channel. But for now, back to the video. So, cracking her open, the first thing that we get is this read first page. I always enjoy it when a starter set or any boxed product comes with one of these sheets that tells you how to interact with the materials inside. It's just a nice accessibility feature. So this tells you a little bit about what D&D is, what this guide is, how to use it, and then how to go through the box, make sure you've got everything, and then on the back it gives you a list of all of the components. And if we open up here, you can see that the interior of this gives you a brief, very brief overview of kind of how to play D&D, not so much the mechanical element of how to play D&D, but the vibe of what D&D is and what you're going to be doing in a role-playing game. Then we have the booklets. So the play guide is essentially the core rules from the PHB with some minor alterations and then some additional notes on using the components in the box. So the box has cards for background, species, and a whole bunch of elements that interact with your class. And the first couple of pages kind of give you a tour of all of these elements, tour the class board, help you to understand how to interact with what is your character sheet through this, because there are no character sheets in this box. It's all these class boards. And I think for a brand new player, that's amazing, because the class sheets, the character sheets can be really overwhelming for someone that has never played a TTRPG before. And I think these more gamified class boards are going to be really useful. Now, I have seen some people view this quite negatively, like look at the gamified elements in this box with a negative lens. But in my opinion, gamifying a game isn't a bad thing. Like, this is a game, treating more elements of it like a game and designing it thoughtfully with gameplay best practices like you would do in a board game. Board games you can pick up and play almost straight away. You don't have to sit and learn the rules for a week before you play most board games. Some of them you definitely do. Taking more of that design approach to D&D just makes it more accessible and then primes the people to then go off and look at the full rules. I'm fully on board with this. And then as we move through, you get what is essentially the basic rules that are available on D&D Beyond or in the SRD, with some minor tweaks predominantly to do with spell casting. So in this starter set, instead of using spell slots, you use power tokens. So it references spell slots in this booklet and tells you, here's how you do it in the main game, but then says in this box set, use track spells using power tokens, and explains how the power tokens work, and it's power tokens that are referenced on the class board. Given that spell level and spell slot and that whole system is one of the most common things that new players find confusing, I think making a change to power tokens for this introductory product makes a lot of sense. Hey, so it's at this point in the video that I should be saying do the like and subscribe thing if I was a competent YouTuber, but clearly I'm not. So we're just going to put this in here and you and I are going to pretend like I worked it totally naturally into the flow of the video, and we're not going to make a big deal of it. You're just going to go down there, you're going to hit the like button, and if you enjoy this, you're going to subscribe, and it's going to be totally cool, and we're not going to make a fuss about it, and we're going to move on with our lives, okay? And then we come to the three main booklets for the adventure. And I'm actually going to come back to these because a lot of what I have to say about this box set beyond the product, beyond the physical product, concerns these. So we're going to come back to that. Moving on, we have a bunch of handouts. We have some notes, some information about things that you might find for sale in the keep on the Borderlands, as well as some services. Now, what I found interesting about these sacred services is there is an option for revival here for 2,000 gold pieces. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, there's no way in an adventure designed for level 1 to 3 that the players are earning 2,000 gold pieces. Unfortunately, the text does acknowledge this. It mentions the fact that it's unlikely the players are going to be able to afford this, and that the spellcasting service provider can give it to them for free if they've built up a rapport and interacted with this character while they're in the keep. So there are some benefits for the players interacting with characters in the keep beyond just finding quest. They can also get some kind of encouraged benefits from things like discount or free spellcasting services if they need it, and that was a really nice touch. Then we come to the maps. So we've got a map of the keep on the Borderlands itself. All of the maps in this are beautiful, really vibrant digital art. If we open this up, we've got the wilderness on one side, which has all of the areas that the players can go to except the keep and the Caves of Chaos marked out. So the keep and the Caves of Chaos specifically aren't marked to stop the players just being like, I go straight to the Caves of Chaos. If you're playing by intention as per the rules, you plonk them on this wilderness map and are like, where would you like to go? That's not how you should run it. We'll talk about it. And then on the other side, we have the map for the Keep on the Borderlands. I really, really like the maps in this box set. They're lovely and vibrant. And the whole art direction and visual tone for this product is a really bright and vibrant and hopeful art style, which I think fits for kind of introductory core D&D really well. D&D can do a bunch of different genres. It can do more grimdark really well. It can do dark fantasy, and I personally enjoy those styles. But for an introduction product, I think going for that more hopeful, vibrant, and like saturated with color fantasy is the right choice, especially given that a lot of the people that are going to be using this product will be kids. And then you get maps for a bunch of different locations for the Caves of Chaos, as well as out in the wilderness. And these are all beautifully illustrated as well. And they're all pretty sizable too. Like this is Cave A of the Cave of Chaos, and it's a pretty decent size as far as poster maps go. All of them are double-sided and they're really clear. It's really easy to see them. You get some printed maps, and I'm going to be talking about some of them in a video coming to the channel soon from another similar product from a third party, where the maps themselves are just overly dark and you really can't see anything at all because they've been designed digitally, and it's not until you get to the printing that you see how it actually looks in person, and they've come out really dark and no adjustments have been made. Whereas it's very clear that these have intentionally been designed for print first. All the values are brightened, there's a lot of contrast, so they look really great when they're printed. Then we come to the class boards. Now this is what you get instead of character sheets. Like I said before, I'm a really, really big fan of this. It's much more accessible to new players, much easier to understand, and the way it interacts with cards makes a lot of sense for anyone that's played board games but has never played a TTRPG before. The way these work is there are 4 classes included in the set: Fighter, Rogue, Wizard, and Cleric, the classic 4 adventuring party, and you get 2 boards for each. One of them has level 1 on one side and level 2 on the other side. And then the second board is 2 subclasses for level 3. So for the Cleric, you get the Light Domain and the Life Domain, and it gives you some different information about what you get with those subclasses. And there are a lot of little design decisions on this class board that I really, really appreciate. Things like at the bottom of your equipment slot here where you put your weapon, it tells you exactly what you need to roll to be able to make a ranged or a melee attack. Same with spells, it tells you your spell attack roll and your DC. In the equipment section for armor, it tells you what your armor class is without armor, and then you put your armor card on it and it tells you what your armor is. There are sections to slot your background and your species card in so that you can reference them really easily, and everything is just so much easier to pass than a typical character sheet. Then we come to the tokens. When you open your copy of the box, they're going to be arranged on the sheet. I've already popped mine out because, like I said, I have recorded this once. But the box comes with a bunch of baggies, and as someone who has got a lot of board games and interacted with a lot of baggies for components over the years, it's such a small thing, but these are really high quality baggies. Like, they're really thick plastic. Like, they're not just going to disintegrate in the bottom of the box like a lot of cheaper baggies. And it's such a minor thing, but it made me so happy as someone that like appreciates good component organization. Like, if we pull out these baggies, you can see at the bottom of the box, there is a molded plastic separator to hold all of your cards in place and all of your baggies and your tokens. And that comes included in the box. It's such a nice departure compared to like the Essentials kit, which was half filled with just cardboard filler. To have this component organizer ready to go so that you can continue to use the box functionally after you've opened it. In terms of the tokens themselves, they are nice and vibrant, just like the rest of the art. They've got a nice glossy finish to them, which I really like in a token. You get a whole ton of monster tokens for all of the various monsters that you're going to find throughout the wilderness and the Caves of Chaos. And they're all these circular 2D versions. They all have a version of the monster art printed on one side, and then on the reverse, it's a version of the art with a little notation, a little label, so that if you have multiple in a scene, you can be like Monster A, Monster B, and so on. Then you get a bunch of player tokens. These have little standees, so they stand vertical instead of sitting flat. And then you also get some tokens for things like Mage Hand, Spiritual Weapon, some treasure and trap tokens, and a whole bunch of kind of terrain tokens, so barriers and kind of stakes in the ground and that sort of thing. Then finally, you get a bunch of treasure tokens in the form of gold pieces and gems. I think this is great for the first couple of sessions where you can hand them out and the players can get the dopamine of having a physical thing in their hand, but with how quickly your players are going to have amounts of gold beyond this baggie, you'll outstrip this very quickly, but it is nice to give them that tactile burst experience. Then same with tokens for the power tokens and tokens for hit points. You probably will continue to use these throughout the course of adventuring in the Borderlands, but not something that you would probably continue to use once you graduate from this box. And then finally, before we go to the cards and things, you get a set of dice, and I appreciate that you get a set of dice in here. I wish that they would have color-coded them though, because they could have done a lot more with the accessibility of the game if they'd color-coded those dice. If every D20 was blue, then anytime the text referenced rolling a D20, it could have been a blue D20. And from personal experience, I can tell you that when you are running for new players, if you color code your dice, it's way easier to explain to them what they need to do. If you say, right, make an attack roll the blue 20-sided dice and add +5. When I started running a lot more games in person, I bought a whole bunch of color-coded polyhedral sets, and I use them whenever I run. I hand them out to the players at the table, and it's so much easier to be like, right, you're doing a fireball, roll this many of the red D6. And they don't have to spend time figuring out how many dice sides there are, and over time they become more familiar with the dice. Then we have the combat tracker. Now this is something that I really like. It's just a small pad of paper. You've got some notes at the top for death saves for the 4 classes involved in the starter set, and you just have a little track for your initiative, who the combatant is, how many hit points they have, and any conditions. And this is just a really simple little way to track combats and track initiative, and I really like it. I wish there'd been a version of this included that didn't have the 4 classes. Having the death saves on there is great, but I wish they'd left the kind of boxes to be filled in by me so that I could use this if I had a different party composition, because this is just genuinely useful for at the table play. And then we come on to the cards, and I really enjoy the cards. There's a lot of little things that improve the accessibility of them. Things like they have this color-coded element at the bottom that lets you know what kind of card they are. So you get a bunch of background cards, which have the art from the PHB on them for the different backgrounds, and then on the back it tells you what you get for being a soldier. You've trained intensely for war. Carry a few memories of what life was like before you took up arms. Battle is your blood. Once per turn, when you hit a target with a weapon, you can roll the weapon's damage twice and use either roll against the target. So the feats from backgrounds are baked in here, but it's not telling you that they're a different mechanic. It's just baking that straight in. In terms of accessibility for a new product, this is absolutely the right call. New players don't care that I'm getting this thing because it's a feat and I get a feat as part of my background with character creation. They just care what the thing does. But going back to our reference booklet, I would like to see whether or not there is a kind of moving on section from here, which I don't believe there is. It might be one of my largest critiques with the product. So I've just had a flick through, and as far as I can tell, there is no section in the rules book, the reference guide, for where to go from here. What do you do to take these characters and build them out properly? It will just be a case of get the PHB, read the rules, figure it out. Some more springboarding from this product into the wider ecosystem would have been nice. Just a little extra booklet that's like, your next steps would have gone a long way in terms of making this something that could springboard into longer term play. But going back to the cards, you get a bunch of cards for NPCs that you're going to meet throughout the keep on the Borderlands and in the wilderness. You get tons of equipment cards that you can festoon your player characters with and deck them out with all kinds of goodness. You get species cards, which tell you what token you should be using if you're playing as that character, and then tell you what your abilities are on the back. It also has space for power tokens, so if you are a character that gets access to spells through your species or through a background, it will give you some slots for power tokens for those, which is really nice. And then there's a magic item deck. Now this forms part of the treasure that you'll find as you go out into the world. And like all magic items in D&D, this deck is wildly inconsistent. So looking through, it's a lot of potions of healing, potions of invisibility, potions of resistance, slippers of spider climbing, scrolls of fireball, but then there's +1 plate armor, which is so unlike everything else that's in this list of magic items. The +1 mace, there's +1 weapons, which are fine. +1 weapons aren't going to be a huge difference. It's 5% chance to hit. But that +1 plate armor, immediately giving you access to plate armor, which in of itself, 1,500 gold, probably none of the characters are going to earn during the course of their level 1 to 3 adventure. But giving them magical plate armor by level 3 and it being plate armor, absolutely bonkers. Not a choice I would have made. If I was running this, I would take this card out, to be frank, because it will so drastically skew how you have to run things as a game master, especially an inexperienced one. If you have a player that has 20 plus AC at level 2 and the rest of your characters are like 14s and 15s, that gap is prime for TPKs to live in, because your monsters are never going to be able to hit the guy in the thick armor. So as a newer GM, instinctively, you're going to start adding some numbers to the dice, or making some harder hitting monsters, or pulling in harder hitting monsters. And that's fine for the guy in heavy plate and the magical armor. But then when they attack everyone else, they are much more likely to kill them. So for the sake of ease, for running for a new group, I would just take that card out. Then we get a whole bunch of spell cards, and this is really quite a stacked deck. And what I really like about it is you get these icons for them, and it tells you the range, how many targets, a little description of what it is. So the aid spell, you bolster creatures' toughnesses, and it tells you what spell level it is. And then on the back, it tells you how to cast it, what the targets are, the effect, and the duration. We love that. But then for any spells that have an area of effect or an emanation, it shows you on the card how it interacts with the grid. Such nice design decisions. It means that you don't need to question how the hell does this spell work, because it tells you right on the card. And like I said, this box set is filled with little design decisions like that just really improve the accessibility of getting into the game and running it, and I like it a lot. And then we come to the last stack of cards. So we have a couple of action cards. So this describes what actions you can take, list of the actions in 2024 5th edition, and then on the back it gives you a little explainer of on your turn in combat, you can move up to your speed, take one action, communicate, interact with something, or take a bonus action. There are 3 of these in the box. I wish there were 6 because they are so genuinely useful for new players. I would like to be able to take these to all of my games and just hand them out to new players or experienced players, because even experienced players forget what they can do sometimes, and be able to be like, remember what you can do, look at your little card. And then we have the stack of monster cards. And I really, really like these monster cards. I have the previous 5th edition monster cards, and they are absolutely fine. Most of those are kind of a blank background with the transparent art of the monster sat on top of them. But I actually really like this kind of full color illustration that you get of the monster. You get the title of the monster, so cultist, and then you get the little tagline that's included in the monster manual that is one of my favorite elements of the new monster manual. So the cultist, a doomsayer and fanatic. And those little taglines go a long way in informing someone who isn't familiar with the type of monster what it's all about. So if we find one, so a gnoll warrior, someone who isn't familiar with D&D might not know what a gnoll is. So seeing fiend in feral flesh and seeing the picture of it helps kind of inform what the vibe of this creature is, which I really like. And then they also tell you what token you should be using as well, which is a really nice accessibility thing. Then on the back, we have all of the information for the monsters. We have their name, their size and creature type, their challenge up in the corner, which makes it really easy to flick through them if you're looking for a specific challenge rating creature on the fly. And then their typical information for the creature itself. The text is fairly sized and really legible, which I really like. It's plain white background, there's good contrast, it's really readable. I think that these monster cards are much better than the monster cards that we got for 2014, and I do hope that we see this released as its own separate product because it is just genuinely really useful. I really like using monster cards when I run in person, and I would buy a full set of them if they were like this. So finally, that brings us to the adventure itself, and I wanted to leave this till last because I have thoughts, and since doing my initial unboxing of this, I've read through these booklets a little, and I think that while the open sandbox approach will work for some tables, it's going to leave some brand new GMs. And bear in mind, again, I'm looking at this from the point of view of someone who has never played D&D before, potentially never played a TTRPG before. So I'm assuming that the GM is going to be brand new as well. While there are plenty of sidebars and information to explain how things work, which I really like, the way that these are structured, I don't think works very well for a brand new GM. So you open up the box and there's no clear indication of which of these three books you should be looking at first. If you open up the Keep on the Borderlands book, they just arrive at the Keep. And if you think of this of, I'm a new GM, I want to run D&D for my players for the first time, I want to give them an exciting, fun first session. Okay gang, your first session is you arrive at a castle and you're going to spend 4 hours talking to people. Cool. Because otherwise, you arrive at the castle, you spend some time going through this space and interacting with people, but then I also have to read all of these books if you're going to leave the castle, because it presents it as you arrive in the Keep on the Borderlands, you speak to some people, they tell you, hey, we've got a bunch of different jobs out in the wilderness, hey, there's the Cave of Chaos. And then the players just decide where to go. That level of openness and player agency is great, but especially for new GMs, that is a lot of work to put on someone who has never run the game before, because they need to be familiar with, at least in passing, with everything in these two books for when the players go from this keep and go, right, okay, let's go out into the woods in the wilderness. Cool, all right, awesome. They want to go to the woods. Right, let's find page 8 in here, and now page 8. I open up page 8, I can pull out the map. You can do it on the fly. It is written fairly well to be done on the fly, but my concern is that a brand new GM is going to have a lot of flapping between the doing because they don't want to miss anything. If I was going to run this box set, the way I would do it is I would start with the wilderness, and the wilderness starts you off on the trail that leads to the Keep on the Borderlands. This has some interactions with some NPCs, some intrigue with finding a caravan that has been attacked, and then a bandit encounter. I would run all 4 of the trail elements as my first introduction adventure, because it culminates with a bandit ambush, you fight some bandits, and then I would end that first adventure with them arriving at the Keep on the Borderlands. That way, they've had some exploration, they've had some investigation, they've had some social interaction with some of the NPCs on the trail, and they've had some combat. They get to experience all the pillars of play straight away, instead of the way that this book says to use the wilderness, which is to put the map in front of the players and be like, where do you want to go? That is too much choice for brand new players, because I've seen it time and time again, they get absolutely paralyzed with decision paralysis. So I would say just start them on the trail, run them through the first 4 trail encounters, and then put them into the Borderlands as the end of that first session. From there, I'd have them explore the keep on the Borderlands, get to know their characters, get to know some of the NPCs that are going to recur in here, and then have them hear about the Caves of Chaos. I wouldn't send them out to the Caves of Chaos necessarily yet, or if they are being sent to the Caves of Chaos, then they can go through some wilderness adventures before they get there. Caves of Chaos should be starting to come into focus at that point, because the Caves of Chaos are the recurring element that's going to keep them coming back to the keep, going out to adventure, coming back to the keep, going out to adventure. All the component parts are here for a fun, sandboxy adventure campaign. I just wish that there was a little more guidance for that first time GM to be like, hey, you can do this by just throwing them into the world and letting them run ham. But you might not want to do that. So if you don't want to do that, here's what we recommend. Do the encounters in this order until you get to this point, at which point they'll be familiar with the game and you'll be a little bit more comfortable, then let them go ham. That is personally how I would run it and how I would have written it, because this, again, it's a box for new players. And in every other element, this box accounts for new players, except for once you get to adventure structure, and then it's like, yeah, just go ham. Just, there's this big open world, you can do anything. It's D&D, you can do anything, it's amazing. And that's true, and it's amazing, but for a brand new GM, they're gonna be like, oh God, what do I do? And for brand new players, they're gonna be like, what do you mean we can do anything? Because I've seen it happen. In terms of the adventures and encounters themselves, the Caves of Chaos is structured really well. You look at the map and it gives you level recommendations for all of the different caves, which I really like. But that isn't present for the wilderness encounters. And this is something that bothered me on reading it, is that it has a bunch of different encounters in the wilderness. And if we go to the start page here, it mentions different descriptions and different pages and elements that you can do in the wilderness. So let's go to the fens on page 10. Cool, so the players are going to go to the fens. So if my players are level 1, they're going to have a fine time. It's 3 Sturges, 2 lizard folk wardens. Cool. That's probably fine for a level 1 party. If the players are level 3 by this point, because this is supposed to cover level 1 to 3 of play, that's probably going to be a very, very easy and maybe somewhat boring encounter. Now, there are some suggestions throughout this booklet of adjusting the encounter. For example, in the very first bandit ambush, there's a little sidebar here for adjusting the difficulty. To make the encounter easier, you can reduce the number of bandits, or you can add another bandit to increase the difficulty. The problem is, giving advice to add or remove monsters to an encounter only works if the Game Master understands what the suggested level or difficulty of the encounter is to begin with. If this is an encounter that's designed for a level 2 party and I have a level 1 party, then I know it's designed to be more difficult than I need. I probably need to reduce the number of monsters. I look at the adjusting the difficulty section and I follow the guidance there for reducing the difficulty down. If it's a level 2 encounter and my party are level 3, I do the same. I look at adjusting the difficulty. I see that my party are going to be overtuned for this. I follow the advice for increasing the difficulty. But when it doesn't tell me what party level this encounter is designed for, I, as the GM, have no context on adjusting the difficulty, which means one of two things. I either need to go and do the math myself, which as an experienced GM, I know how to do. I know how to quickly go look at an encounter and go, right, for my party, this is going to be fine. This is going to be difficult. I need to make these tweaks. But again, we're looking at this from the lens of a brand new GM with brand new players. They're not going to have that experience. I don't even know whether the XP tables are included in that initial rules reference. So they need to do a better job of being like, if your party is level 1, run this encounter as it is. If the party is a different level, here's how you make those adjustments. And that's my biggest tip if you are writing your own adventures, either for publishing or if you are making adventures for your own home games. When it comes to adjusting encounters, you really need to know where you're starting from. That baseline is really important. In terms of the text itself throughout the book, there are a whole bunch of little design decisions that I do really like. So there are a lot of breakout boxes that will tell you what you need to prepare as the GM. So when you're doing the occult ritual, you'll need the poster map of the woods, character tokens for a player per character, 4 cultist robe equipment cards, and monster cards and tokens for 4 cultists. That's really nice because it means that right at the top, you can look at that and go and get the things that you need. It's got plenty of breakout text. It's got the typical formatting for 5th edition adventures, for bold monsters, etc. And at the start of each of the booklets, it does give you that run through example of, in this case, a region in the wilderness, an area in the Keep in the Borderlands, one of the Caves of Chaos, that explain how to read this text and understand all of the things that it's saying. I really like that. And then to finish off, I just want to look at the wilderness encounters that are included at the back of the wilderness book. So we get random encounters for the fens, the tarmac stand, the trail, and the woods. It gives you a little explanation of how to use these tables, roll on them, get the monster tokens, get the poster map for one of the 4 regions. And this adds a little bit of variety to when they're traveling through the regions. It means that you can run the trail, for example, you run those 4 encounters that I said as your introductory session, but you can then have a number of encounters. You can have up to 8 encounters already kind of decided for you to run in the trail as the players are moving up and down it to the Caves of Chaos in the future. Some of these are going to be things like hostile hobgoblin warriors accost the characters on the road. That's going to be a combat encounter. Or a friendly knight bound for the keep on the Borderlands challenges the characters to a light-hearted and non-lethal duel. Very different contexts of the encounters that you're going to have. Or things like a little skill challenge where a batch of cavalry come charging out of the keep on the Borderlands and the players have to get out of the way of it or be run down by mistake. It's just nice to have a selection of wilderness encounters to give a little bit of replayability and a bit of variation to the wilds. So overall, I am really impressed with this. I think it is a much better starter set in terms of the contents of the box than we got in Phandelver, and in terms of the accessibility of the way a lot of it is designed. I do think that it suffers from being so non-linear. I think that that will be a problem for some new players, but I don't think that that is a deal breaker at all. And it is a different style of play to what we got in Phandelver, which was much more linear, and some people do just genuinely prefer that. I'd love to know what you think of the new starter set down in the comments below. And if you want to keep watching, check out this video where I compared the Phandelver box to the Pathfinder 2nd edition starter set, because I'm pretty sure that this box set took a lot of cues from the Pathfinder box. But until next time, happy gaming.